Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's your stay-at-home mom, Sophie Chanel, and today's video is a part 2 to a video that is way long overdue. But if you watched part 1 of my video, I'll insert a clip of it here. This is part 2. I wanted to come back because I had made a post. I made this video after the death of MANDISA, who was someone that was a former church member of mine. You all know her as the American Idol singer, gospel singer. Just what I went through, that process in processing her death and attending her funeral, and just a lot of the thoughts that came up with that, and with my own dealing with my, church hurt or church traumas. And I wanted to read this response that I had gotten from a friend of mine who also went through this very thing with me, and how healing it was for me. So I'm just going to read that really quickly. And it says, "I love this and applaud your transparency and vulnerability. I can wholeheartedly relate. You go into situations thinking it's a trusted environment. You get completely blindsided, experience shell shock, and somewhat become the narrative by default because you're hurt, defensive, and skeptical. While apologies come and it's our job to walk in forgiveness, that doesn't undo the damage that was done. Things that were said and seeds that were planted," and these are in quotes because this was what was quoted to us, "may have taken root." Well, not may have, they've absolutely taken root. I feel like there's an added level of responsibility for the transgressor to not only make amends with you, but to go and make it right. Sometimes that never comes, and people who never gave the benefit of the doubt to begin with continue with their perception of you based on this false narrative. In some cases, it's never fixed, and we have to accept that and know that the Lord is our vindicator. What's sad is that the trauma changed you. Scar tissue is real. When there's no accountability, you're left dumbfounded. People don't realize the deep impact and chalk it off with a wave and a get over it. I pray for complete healing and that the residue of these experiences be mitigated. May we both show up wholeheartedly, authentically, unapologetically, and be a testimony that we're overcomers. I can relate to all of this. Hurt people can heal people. Love you, Sophie. And I just want to say that this was what I needed. And it shows me that when I made that video, I didn't understand who it was for or why I was even making it in that moment. I just knew that there was something in my spirit that I needed to get out. And this response, I thank God that she sent this response to me, because oftentimes I feel that we can be that healing message for somebody else, but when it's our own stuff, it's just like there's this block sometimes that's just like we are really wanting to hear it from like God directly, like sometimes we know the answers, but it's like, well, I'm waiting for somebody else to give me that message. I'm waiting for somebody else to deliver me that message. So like as that confirmation, because these are things that I know, but hearing it from somebody else who also went through it, who can relate, it's just like, it was just like that affirmation that I think I was looking for, and just knowing sometimes like that we're not alone and that someone else is still in that same place, And I did get messages from others as well that said like, this message was for me. Thank you for sharing this. Even though at the time I didn't see, like, I was like, Lord, I don't even know like if I should even put this out there, because there is no resolve, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? It was just me pouring out my heart in that moment. So I just wanted to just go over some of the key points that stood out to me in this message. Because maybe one of you or some of you may have gone through something similar or dealt with a situation where you felt like you were lied on, you were talked about, something was presented to somebody else that was not an actual representation of who you were. And you're dealing with the fact that these individuals now have this perception of you that isn't who you authentically are. And again, like I'm still, like in this space around these people that still have no idea that that wasn't me, based on these lies that were presented to them. And for some reason, I think I just had it in my mind, like I have to vindicate myself. I have to show them like who I really am. I have to show them that that wasn't true. Like, did this person even go back and tell them that they lied? They came and told me, they went and told my friend that they lied on us, but did they go and tell all the other people their transgressions against us? You know what I'm saying? But some of the things that just stood out to me, it is our job to walk in forgiveness, and I feel like that's something that I've always been able to do. I think some people in some situations are more quickly to forgive than others. There are some things that I feel like the Holy Spirit is showing me, like, you really, really got to work on forgiveness with this. And there are some things that for me, I don't want to say that they're unforgivable, but there have been some things that have happened that I'm like, Lord, you really gonna really have to work with me. I say on the surface that I've forgiven, but when things come back up and I'm triggered, I'm like, this shouldn't disrupt my spirit the way that it is. And so that's showing me like that forgiveness that I thought that I extended may not really be fully there. So that's one thing. Another thing that was said is that the things that were said and the seeds that were planted may have taken root, but did the transgressor make amends and go make it right? And that was one of the things that I feel like coming up in this church and just in church in general is that if you've done something against somebody else, you first of all, you apologize, you ask for their forgiveness, and you make it right. So all of the people that if you gossip, just for an example, if you gossip about somebody and you put their business out there to all these people, and the person that you gossip about, and it gets back to them, you can go and apologize to the person that you gossiped on, the person that you put your mouth on. You can apologize to them, but you also need to go back to every individual that you went and gossiped on this person about and tell them, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have done this. I have to own my part. And so we have to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, because we never want to be a hindrance in someone else's walk. You know, one of the worst things that I feel that you can do is pull somebody away from Christ. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like that's the key thing when it comes to this church hurt thing, and that we have to be very, very careful, because a lot of people have been hurt by church folk. It's not that the church or that God hurt them. And so we have to learn to separate the two. You were hurt by people. God did not hurt you. And so that's something to be very mindful of. And it's something that I've learned, that though I may have been done an injustice by somebody who was associated with the church building, God did not do that to me. Jesus did not do that to me. The church in and of itself did not do that to me. An individual that was parading themselves around to be a representative of Christ did. And there's a big difference. So you want to just be very careful not to mix the two. There's an example that I can give. When I was 17 years old, there was a man in our church that tried to come on to me. He physically pushed himself on me and forced himself on me. Forced physical interaction that was not wanted on my part. Sorry, I was not planning on going there, but for a minute, I could have easily gone to, I'm not going to church anymore. I don't trust God. I don't trust God's people. I don't trust Christians. And this person was in leadership. I could have done that, but I saw the person, and I was able to separate that from the church. I was able to separate that from God. I did not step away from God and say, I'm done with God. I'm wiping my hands of this Christianity thing. I didn't do that, because I saw that this isn't who God is. This man claims to be a representative, but he's not showing that. It's not in his fruit, isn't producing that. You can tell a person by their fruit. So I don't know how I got onto that, but I will say that you have to go and make it right with all those other people. And also, don't allow what happened. Don't blame God for what happened. Don't walk away from God because of what happened. Let's see, the next point that I wanted to read is that so some of those people will continue on with their perception of you based on that false narrative, and that's where I have difficulty. That's what I have difficulty with. In some cases, it's never fixed. We have to accept that the Lord is our vindicator. And so I think sometimes we try to help God by vindicating ourselves and vindicating our name. And God says that vengeance is mine. And so we just have to have peace in that, to settle in that. If there's an opportunity to show someone different, I say take it, but don't try to prove your case. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel that they will know from your fruit. You know what I'm saying? And I feel that even now, I feel like God is working behind the scenes to show that fruit. And so, yeah, like I'm just holding steadfast in that. And oh, this part really, really let me know. It says, what's sad is that the trauma changed you. Scar tissue is real. And I had a conversation with my husband just earlier today, completely unrelated to this. I wasn't even planning on making this video, but he sent me a video of a gospel or Christian artist. I think her name is Terry Ann. And he was like, it reminds me of the old you, like a kind of song you would listen, like the old you would really, really enjoy. And I was like, what do you mean by like the old me? He's like, you know, I could tell he was just kind of like beating around the bush with it. And I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, well, you know, like I could tell he wanted to say when you had a certain purity or innocence about yourself before life really happened to you. And it's so real, you guys, like that innocence that we had as children, or that innocence and purity that we had when we first fell in love with God, you know, that was what he was trying to communicate. And I knew where he was going, but it's like one of those things, like you get married, life happens. You have children, life happens. You have issues at the workplace, life happens. You have issues with family, life happens. And I feel like all of those instances start to kind of chip away. It's as if, like, if you think about your body just like cloaked in like this white veil, and every time something happens, it's just like an ink splatter on that veil, and it's like you can't see as clearly. Like, say that veil comes down all over, you know, like covering your face, you're all over you, and every time life happens, it's just like ink splatters. It blurs your vision a little bit, you know. You're getting these stains and all of this life be lifing, and it's just like you walk a little bit differently, you talk a little bit differently, and it's like you don't see the world with the same eyes. Just like with children, once they're exposed to certain things, that innocence starts to die down with them. And that's why we try to be very vigilant in what we expose our children to in terms of television, movies, music, people, you know, how people speak, environments, because we want to protect their innocence and their childlikeness as much as possible. And so, like she said, that scar tissue is real, you know, and it's just so difficult. It's been my prayer. I was telling my husband this earlier today. It's been my prayer that God can restore some of that in us, that purity that we had, that innocence that we had, that joy that we had for him. Like, Lord, restore my joy, restore the innocence that we have. Help us to not be swayed by the things of the world, or be tainted, you know, by the things of the world. Sometimes people will tell you like, oh, just get over it. It happened, let it go. And it's just like, if there's no healing there, it's difficult to let it go. We can forgive, but sometimes healing still has to take place. And so don't neglect the healing aspect. If it's therapy that you need to go through, and I've been in therapy, but I didn't see this as an issue that I needed to work through. But now I do. So I'm going to be back in touch with my therapist so that we can process this. And so I just want to encourage you, and the same prayer that she had for us, I'm extending that prayer to you all as well. I'm just praying for complete healing from church hurt, from people hurt, from God hurt, whatever the things are that we're labeling as God hurt and church hurt, that we would just experience complete healing in those situations, and that you can show up wholeheartedly, authentically, unapologetically, and be a testimony that you are an overcomer, and that really hurt people can really heal people. You know, you hear so often hurt people, but I believe that God can use the hurt to bring about healing in others. You know, I don't want to have my hurt other people. You know, I want to make something good from that. I've been hurt. If I'm, you know, dealing with something, I don't want that for the next person. I want to utilize that experience, even as I'm healing, to be healing for somebody else, even if it's just planting a seed for somebody else to be like, you know what, I can relate to that. I recognize where I blamed God for something that somebody else did, and I'm just going to go to the Lord and ask him to change my heart about this, soften my heart towards this individual, help me to forgive this person, help me to not blame the church and not blame God for what somebody else did. That's my prayer for you all. Hope this reaches somebody, whoever it's for. I pray that you receive it, and I pray that God brings about complete, total healing and restoration in your life. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. God loves you.